Hi, I'm Gordon MacPherson from IEEE. For those of you who might not be familiar with IEEE, we're a 400,000 or so member professional organization, mostly for electrical engineers, computer scientists. It's a little broader than that. We also have physicists, mathematicians, telecommunications engineers. So the core is electrical engineering and related subjects, but we are broader than that. So we're a publishing company, a standards organization, a conference organizer. We do a whole bunch of things under that tent, and I'm the director of conference quality. So I want to start you off with a conference paper that's a little unusual. So I've removed the title and the author's names and affiliations. So you see an abstract, and it looks like an introduction, some research methods. So far, it looks like a pretty run-of-the-mill conference paper. So we're at about the 3-page mark now. So now we'll start the reference section. So we're on page 4. So mind you, the body of the paper has been about 3 1/3 pages. And we're going to keep going. And that, you can see there are a whole lot of references in the reference section for this paper. So we noticed a few things that were unusual. Once Thompson alerted us to something a little strange about this paper. The authors included 109 items in the references list for a 3 or so page paper, including 82 citations to the same journal, the International Journal of Sensor Networks. By a strange coincidence, one of the 2 co-authors is the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Sensor Networks. These citations, we found, were added after the paper had gone through peer review. The peer review platform that was used, we contacted the owner of the platform who released the logs to us, and we were able to see the version of the paper that had gone through peer review, and it wasn't a badly written paper or anything, and it was within IEEE's scope. There was no reason for it not to be accepted to the conference. However, it only had about 20 or 30 references, the version that was seen by the reviewers. So the impact was pretty serious for this author. Thompson excluded that journal from the JCR, and we retracted the paper from IEEE Explore. IEEE Explore is our research database, and there were ramifications for the author as a member of IEEE as well. So this is sort of a mini case study of an author behaving very badly. So at IEEE, we faced some serious conference quality issues over the past few years, and it began about 7 or 8 years ago. We just started noticing little issues being reported here and there. Our conferences really run their own business. It's like we have about 1,400 conferences a year. Half of them are run by other people outside of IEEE, and we co-sponsor them, which means we lend our name to the conferences, and we lend some bodies to the technical program committees. So we started seeing things here and there, reports coming from people who had gone to the conferences, saying, I went to the conference and there were 5 people in the room, and I looked in Explore and there were 600 papers in the proceedings. Things that just didn't smell right, we're starting to notice. And this started to ramp up around 2010, and it started to become a thing at IEEE. And of course, we don't work in a vacuum. We work very closely with abstracting and indexing services, Elsevier, Thomson, the IET, which, if you're not familiar with it, it's a sister society to IEEE, like the British version of IEEE. So by mid-2011, roughly 5 years ago, this issue had become a crisis within IEEE, a crisis for our reputation. And we at that time, formed a volunteer conference quality committee and a staff team to work in tandem with that committee to focus on these issues. So these were the things that we were encountering. Poor English quality. We don't demand perfection, but the English quality has to be at least of a sufficient level where you can follow the narrative of the paper very clearly. Papers that were out of IEEE's scope that had nothing remotely to do with engineering or technology. Ethical infractions, like the example I showed before, where that's engaging in what we call citation stacking. And no-shows, the extreme version would be a ghost conference, where a few grad students show up and 800 papers are miraculously turned in with the proceedings. So we looked underneath those symptoms, we looked for the root causes. Now, one of them is just that there are some very entrepreneurial folks who entered the conference publishing business, and I don't mean entrepreneurial as a compliment in that respect. Taking advantage of the pressure to publish. There are some countries where a graduate engineering student has to publish X number of papers a year. It's not whether the papers are really good or really bad, it's just you have to publish that number of papers or else you will not advance to the next year in university. There was a lot of ignorance out there. I've done a number of focus groups with grad students and doctoral candidates in the engineering space who in certain areas have told me that there's no mentor relationship for them. Like they're kind of on their own. And so a lot of them are not bad people and they don't mean to do bad things, but they lack information. And also, IEEE was known as the Electrical Engineering Society for a lot of folks. We have become broader, and we have struggled to keep our indexing partners in tune with us as the engineering space becomes broader and multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary subjects creep into our conferences. What might be right for an IEEE conference might not be a perfect fit for IEEE Explore. There could be, for instance, a business track at an IEEE conference which fits the scope of that particular conference. It might be an e-commerce conference with a strong technological element, but the pure business papers might not be the right fit for IEEE Explore. So that's one example of diversity of scope between our conferences and our research database. So the conference quality committee's role is to make a judgment on the content that's been turned in from the conference as a whole. We can't really negotiate paper by paper. We don't have the resources for that. So we use certain types of data. We use statistics to determine how much time was available to defend the papers. If there was a poster session, were there hundreds of papers and an hour and a half to go through the poster session, for example? We use a third-party abstracting and indexing service to provide us initial pass-fail grades on each paper that we've assigned for screening. Pass-fail is based on, is the paper within IEEE's stated scope, and is the English readable? Is it comprehensible? We don't perform a deep dive into the science and the math in each paper because that really is the responsibility of the technical program committee. And we simply don't have the technological bandwidth to make that deep a judgment on each paper that we're screening. We screen a little over 10% of all the papers that are coming in from our conferences each year. So that's about 18,000 papers. And the committee is made up of 5 people, and the support staff are 2 people. So what we're seeing over the last couple of years, 2014, 2015, 2016, is that we're getting better communication going between our committee, the people who are running the conferences, and the IEEE units. And IEEE is made up of a group of 40-something societies, each of which is dedicated to a narrow slice of electrical engineering or computer science or related subjects. And so the IEEE unit sponsors, the folks who represent IEEE to the conference, we're getting good communication going, and failures are dropping. We're seeing, it's the hockey stick, the failures are dropping. I had to make that reference because I'm in Canada, sorry. Failures are decreasing over time. And repeat failures from the same folks are almost vanishing. It seems like people are starting to learn their lessons. So we have evolved from a group of gatekeepers, like sort of the conference cops, to a team of coaches, and we see ourselves more as teachers now. I say we, I'm using we because as a staff member, I work so closely with the committee, but our skills are very different. I was trained as a journalist. I come from a pure publishing background. You wouldn't want me anywhere near a circuit board that you really cared about. But the folks who I'm working with, the volunteers, are esteemed electrical engineers and computer scientists, and we work seamlessly together. So another aspect of our proactive stance are our educational webinar series, e-learning courses, and we pack our suitcases and go out on the road and do miniature workshops, miniature panels of conference organizers to just teach people in person the right way to run a conference and the right way to prepare your technical program. So we feel that we've turned the corner and we're actually trying to be thought leaders and not just trying to purely stop the bad guys. So we have our gatekeeping processes in place. We're reaching out to the community. We think the vast majority of organizers are doing an excellent job running their conferences. We focus on the people who are having trouble. We're still having trouble screening out subpar conference organizers at the front door, and we just need to get this story out there without scaring people off from working with IEEE. Thank you.